Okay, so this is a presentation that I've tweaked quite a lot compared to the previous master classes. It used to be called 7 Ways to Build a Moat. It's not called Endless Ways to Build a Moat. I've decided to make it a bit more practical, as you'll see. Instead of just presenting you what are the general ways you can do this, I just want to share with you. You'll see it's an actual list that we've been using for the past 3-4 months together with our VAs. It's a more interactive way of coming up with potential innovations, improvements that you can make to a product you're thinking of sourcing. And I'll explain more about that as we move along here. Okay, so the goal is to remove your fear, doubt, or mental block related to launching unique products and show you how easy it is to come up with innovative ideas. I know that for me this was a big mental block. I just felt that, okay, I have to do some kind of innovation. Where do I start? I don't know anything about this product. It's difficult to come up with ideas. So I just feel that for a lot of people, they're not launching improved enough products or innovative enough products, not because of a financial issue or time issue, just because they feel that it's very complicated. So my goal is to show you how easy it is. I also want to convince you of the benefits of having a great product or having great products. Hopefully you've also seen that from the master plan, and it makes sense since it impacts all those other things. And I want to show you why launching Me Too products in 2019 is a doomed strategy. Just a quick reminder from the master plan. You can see how, I'm not going to go through it again, but having a unique, moated, in-demand product with high ROI and high profit margin really impacts the whole master plan. It impacts the reviews, the copy, the images, the videos, the ranking. I'm not going to read this whole thing. What is an economic moat? I'm just going to read the first paragraph. The term economic moat, popularized by Warren Buffett, refers to a business's ability to maintain competitive advantages over its competitors in order to protect its long-term profits and market share from competing firms. Just like a medieval castle, the moat serves to protect those inside the fortress and their riches from outsiders. And just so you know, there are entrepreneurs like Elon Musk who, for example, they think, or they said that, the moat, he actually said, I think moats are lame. And so, it's not, you might have an opinion that differs from Warren Buffett's opinion on this, but I think my opinion about Elon Musk in this case is that he just wanted to, be interesting. But yeah, personally, I do think that moats are valuable. So why build a moat? It increases the safety of your business. It makes the business more desirable for a potential buyer, and it increases the multiple you can obtain. It can elevate your business model. And what I mean here is that obviously, for example, just doing drop shipping where you identify products on AliExpress and you not only do you not make any improvement, but you have that supplier from China ship straight to the customer. That's one business model, and you can elevate it by actually ordering products, not one by one, but you order them in mass, you customize them at least with your logo, so you brand them, right? So that's elevating that initial business model, and I think that the moment you build a moat, you elevate the standard private label business model. You can make a difference in the marketplace if you want to do that. So when you create a moat, as you'll see, it doesn't make sense to just, come up with something that, you're thinking of. It's usually going to be, you're actually going to improve the product. You're going to think about what the customers would want and what would actually make the product more desirable to them. So I do think that this is a side benefit, but you actually make a difference in the marketplace. You improve, even if competitors start to copy you, as long as you keep improving, you are pushing the market. You won't be forced to have a race to the bottom when it comes to price. Some moats are only temporary, as you'll see. Only 3 options that I'm sharing with you are temporary. Most of them are permanent, and or at least they're very long term, and they help you maintain a higher price and not be forced to race to the bottom. Okay, so step 1 is to understand your product. And this seems very simple, and it's something that, it's not an immediate action. It's not something that you do to the product itself. It's something that you do to yourself. It's about increasing your knowledge and understanding of the product. So I think it's not a very sexy topic, but again, I'm going to read something related. It's not Warren Buffett, it's his partner, Charlie Munger, and I'm just going to quickly read this. Charlie likes to meet people for breakfast, usually starting at 7:30 a.m. I remember the first time I had breakfast with him, I arrived on time and found Charlie sitting there, finished with the day's newspapers. It was only a few short minutes before 7:30, but I felt bad letting an older man I respected wait for me. For our second meeting, I arrived about 15 minutes earlier and still found Charlie sitting there reading the newspaper. For our third meeting, I arrived 30 minutes earlier, and Charlie was still reading the newspaper, as if he had been waiting there all year round and had never left the seat. At the fourth meeting, I arrived an hour early and sat there waiting at 6:30. At 6:45, Charlie strolled in with a pile of newspapers and sat down, not even looking up, completely unaware of my existence. Thereafter, I came to understand that Charlie always arrives early for meetings. However, he does not waste time either, because he reads the newspapers he brought along. Now, I also arrive early with a newspaper in hand to keep him company until we start our breakfast meeting at 7:30. So, I'm not saying that you need to read newspapers, but I think it's something useful that you can do is to actually learn about manufacturing processes and materials and everything about your niche that you're selling your products in, not because you need it right now, but because it gives you a competitive advantage long term. So these are for me, they're like the Bibles of sourcing, at least for me. It's the materials source book for design professionals and the manufacturing processes for design professionals. They're by the same author named Rob Thompson, Thompson. So the material source book and manufacturing processes. You can just Google or search on Amazon for material source book and you'll find it, or manufacturing processes and you'll find them. I know you can't actually read this from the room on the slides, but when you go home you can get a more detailed idea of what's in the book. But I just want to point out to the title. So for example, here there's a short section on composite laminating, and I have no idea where that's used or exactly what it means, but I think it's useful to actually spend some time and read that, and I won't be able to use it right away. I don't have a product right now where I need to understand that process, but sometime in the future I know I might encounter this, or I might encounter a product where this manufacturing process is not being used. But because I understand how this works and where it's best used, I might come up with an idea that why don't we replace the existing manufacturing process that this supplier in China is using and that all my competitors are using with this particular manufacturing process. Just a few more examples: resistance welding, CNC engraving, foil blocking, and embossing. This one is super useful, for example, if you want to design great packaging. And then this is from the second book, the materials source book. So the ones I've shown you before are, of course, from manufacturing processes. This one is from materials source book. And again, I might not be even sourcing a product right now, but I think it's one of those things that it's worth doing. You don't read the newspaper for 15 minutes in the morning. I would recommend that you allocate some time, maybe not daily, but at least weekly, to just open the book randomly and read about the material that you know nothing about. And just understanding, what are its qualities, where it's best used, what are some applications, and then you might come up with ideas of where you can use that for your existing products. And if you don't have that, it's going to be useful in the future, again, because ideas don't come in a vacuum. Innovation doesn't happen by, you look at, I want to launch a cup on Amazon and I have to, on the spot, come up with ideas of how I can improve these. Ideas come when you have some sort of background knowledge and you know something about certain materials, and you can use that and make connections from what you already know to actually come up with those improvements. Okay, just so a few more examples. Birch, this one, it depends what niche you're in, but if you have any kind of wood products, it's so common to just, go with the type of wood that everyone is using, or, not even knowing why they're using, for example, let's say you have a shower bench and it's made of teak, and all suppliers, all competitors are using teak, and it's a teak shower bench. If you don't read about teak and the other types of wood, you don't know why that type of wood is being used, what are its properties, what are the positives, what are the negatives, and what are the alternatives. Maybe there is a better type of wood that you could use that would be half the price, and in terms of using it for a shower bench, it makes perfect sense. And this may lead you even further, because you're switching the type of wood. You might realize, well, they're using teak only because that's very popular in China, or it grows in China, but maybe birch would be more appropriate, only it doesn't grow in that region. Let's say it grows more in Taiwan, and maybe if I were to source from Taiwan, I would get a much better price and I could use a higher quality material, and the only reason why everyone is using teak is because it's China specific, and that's where most people source from. By the way, these are fictional examples. I have no idea if any of what I've said is true or not. Probably not. Okay, wool, polypropylene, walnut. You get the idea. So that's how the book is structured. It's just the way I use it. I just open it up randomly. I have 10 to 15 minutes scheduled 3 times a week, where I just open it randomly and I read on various materials and manufacturing processes. And sometimes I read the same thing that I've maybe read 6 months ago, but just because I'm working on new products, it's actually useful to go over it again, just because it sparks new ideas. Okay, so how and why? Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they don't read the newspaper to find a specific piece of information on the spot. They're not looking to buy shares in a certain company right now, and they're looking in the paper trying to find that specific piece of information. They read in advance so they can make connections, extract an idea, a piece of information later when they need it. Read these books before you need the information. Innovation doesn't happen in a void. The more you understand about the manufacturing processes, the various materials and their properties, the easier it will become to come up with new ideas for improvements whenever you see a new product. Okay, step number 2. So let's assume that you are okay with understanding your product and the manufacturing process and the materials of your product. The next step would be to understand your customer. And that's equally important. This is a quote from Seth Godin. Don't find customers for your products, find products for your customers. So a great source, what's awesome about Amazon, aside from a lot of other things, is that we have all this data, and it's data generated by customers, real customers who purchase the product, who use the product, left reviews to your competitors. They asked questions. And very often questions reflect even more than reviews what's most relevant for the customers. So the best place to start when you want to understand the customer is of course the reviews and the answered questions on your competitors' listings. Just imagine that you're not selling on Amazon, that you have a rather innovative product that you're selling on your own website, and let's say your competitors are also not selling on Amazon and they don't have any kind of reviews on their website. You probably have to do like focus groups and all sorts of expensive marketing research stuff. We have all the data in the reviews, so that's something that I love. So of course this is in the reviews section, the actual images. This is something that I like to do. Like if it's a big niche where you have a lot of products with a lot of reviews, it's very likely that there's a lot of visual content that was generated. So this is a really fast way to, without reading each review, to understand what are the main issues with a product of your competitor, or what they use it mostly for, or what might break, is to just quickly go through the images and identify common patterns. And tomorrow we're going to talk about a more systematic approach to analyzing reviews as we build the listing and the copy for the listing. We both create the bullet points using the customer's language, and we create a separate list that we can use for coming up with ideas of things to improve. Okay, and step 3 is to come up with a small patentable improvement. And this is what I've changed from the past 2 master classes where I just gave examples of things that you can patent. Now I'm switching to a list that, as I've said, we've been using for the past 4 months with our VAs very successfully, because it turns this kind of abstract process where you need to come up with ideas of things that you can improve. It turns it into a very systematic thing that you can say, okay, we're going to spend 2 hours brainstorming, or the VAs can do that between them. I like to get involved, Steph likes to get involved in this just because it's fun. And it's a fixed time frame, and by the end we have at least one, if not more, really easy to implement things, great ideas to use for improving any product. So it's an A to Z list. We have 26 ideas on here, so they're not quite endless. There's actually only 26. I'm going to go through them. You're also going to get some sheets with that just summarize all these. So I'm going to quickly go through these. Okay, so the first one is add. It's the most common and easiest way to make an improvement. Just add something that's missing. Add something that improves usability. Add something that makes it look better, no matter how small. And this is an example with our first product, the body brush. The only thing that we've improved to make it actually patentable was to take the strap of the brush and add that piece of plastic there, so now it's adjustable. And even though that was like 3 years ago, very few competitors were no longer, of course, in that niche, since we can't compete with our buyer. But still, there aren't almost any other sellers having an adjustable strap. And that didn't came, again, it wasn't an idea we just came up with. It was something that we've noticed in the reviews, we've noticed in the support messages we were receiving, that people were complaining that, that strap might be too loose for their hand. So we had to make it large enough so it fits any hand, but it's inconvenient if it's not adjustable. I can't remember the exact cost. I think it was like somewhere between 3 and 7 cents to actually add that piece of plastic with the metal thing at the end, including labor. So in terms of cost, is insignificant, but it allowed us to obtain a patent for that. So even if there were any new sellers copying that, the new owner, the buyer of our business, would be able to use that patent against that to take them down. So it's a very small thing. I don't think it makes a huge difference in terms of customer experience. It's not the biggest issue they've had with this brush, but it was enough to get a patent and make the business much more appealing to the buyer. The second one is bundled. This should never be the only improvement you make. There are only 3 improvements like this on that sheet. If you understand the market, if you can identify a product that is very frequently bought together with yours, so not something that you wish would be frequently bought together, but something that naturally is frequently bought together with your product, bundling can add value. However, it's only, if it's the only improvement you make, you'll end up competing on price because all your competitors will copy that, and this is a very temporary moat. And this is what happened with the brush. Everyone was selling just the main body brush. We added the face brush and the travel bag, and then almost everyone else added that as well in time over the course of several months. Connect. Would the product be better if you could interact with it from your phone? So that is a simple, very small device that measures temperature and humidity. Most devices like this, like 1 year ago when we did the first master class, this was the only product that had the ability to connect to your phone. Everyone else had the measuring part, so the sensor, and then a normal display, a separate unit that would display the temperature and the humidity. And this product was doing amazingly well in that super competitive niche, just because they spent the time they probably hired someone to create that very simple app to simply display the temperature and the humidity on the phone. So can you connect your product to the phone via Bluetooth or some other means? Design. In some niches, sellers only focus on functions, completely ignoring design. So for example, the pet only wants to scratch, but the human wants it to blend with its furniture. The baby only wants to chew it, but the mother wants it to be fashionable. So there are a lot of niches where the product, all competitors' products solve the need, the function, but they're not designed so that the other entities involved in this case, it's not just the pet, it's also the owner of the pet who wants that to look nice in his home, her home. Eco-friendly. If you have no margin left for flashy packaging, you could go the eco-friendly brown packaging with 2 colors or minimalist route. So there's an example with very basic packaging, and it's such a simple idea. And I bet that if they were to use that in a Facebook ad, they would actually generate real sales from that. Function. These tapes, they're called washi tapes. They're some Japanese thing, but if you look at the keywords, there's a lot of searches for washi tapes with dispenser. So that's much more expensive than just buying the tapes themselves, because there's another product included that's rather bulky, heavy, it adds in volume, so it more than doubles the price if you want to buy both the tapes and the dispenser. So what this seller did was they took the packaging, which was there anyway, and they just turned it into a dispenser. So function, can you add some extra desired functions to the product without increasing cost or size? So making, this is the easiest one, to make your packaging functional. Guide, would some instructions improve the overall customer experience? Works especially well for products that can benefit from the IKEA effect, and in niches where your competitors are completely neglecting this aspect. And that's something that we actually use as a product picking strategy. We might go into niches where things don't look that great in terms of some of the criteria, but we see that a lot of customers complain in the reviews, in the answered questions. They ask for guides or instructions, and none of the competitors are providing instructions. That's a great niche to enter in, just because you can capture the market and you can have much higher ratings than everyone else if you can include some nice instructions. Hide, tweak the design to make the product blend with its environment, remove an unpleasant feature. Maybe the product in the image isn't the best example, but just like with the previous example, there might be products where most suppliers and most sellers only think about, okay, let's make it actually work. But in that process, there is some undesired feature that is also included. So if you can somehow come up with a solution to remove that unpleasant feature while maintaining the function, that's a great way to make an improvement. Make it idiot-proof, make it super easy to use. So this is a dog leash where you can just adjust the length of the leash. What I wanted to use here was easy, so I'm using idiot-proof just to use the eye. Join two or more different products into one. So here again, I would suggest looking at frequently bought together. Maybe just use your own intuition, but if you can find that there are 3 different products that usually are needed for the same activity, or they're frequently bought together, can you hire an engineer to basically merge them? Kickstarter, this is a very simple idea, but something that you might not realize is that, again, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's something like 80% of Kickstarter campaigns actually fail. And they don't necessarily fail because the product idea is bad. They fail because most of the people who launch Kickstarter campaigns, they think that if they have a good enough idea, that's all they need, and they don't do any kind of marketing. They don't build an email list. They don't do any kind of Facebook ads. So if you search for site:kickstarter.com and then the product name, or just the niche, like you can search site:kickstarter.com cat, you will find a lot of failed Kickstarter campaigns that, again, it's not that the products suck, it's just that the creator of the campaign didn't do any kind of marketing. And you can either copy the idea, you can approach the person who created the product and maybe do a sort of JV or partnership with them. But yeah, we actually have a couple of products we've launched on Amazon. One, we just copied the idea because it was something super simple. In one, we did the JV with the original Kickstarter campaign creator. And they're both doing really well on Amazon. Lightweight, replace a material, a component, a manufacturing process to make the product lighter, but at the same time stronger or better looking. Here we're taking a dog leash, and now this is very common, but just the idea of replacing that component with something stronger, so in this case aviation aluminum, rock climbing carabiner, super strong yet light in weight. Materials that change color based on temperature, that melt in contact with water, magnetic materials, sticky, soft, adhesive, super strong, super elastic. Can any of these improve or differentiate the product? So this is a very wide aspect of making improvements, but again, if you randomly open up that material source book that I mentioned before, you can just come up with ideas, okay, can I add something magnetic to this product? So for example, here we have a letter board. I think this is one of the very few products that added 4 magnets to the back of the board just so you can attach it to the fridge. And they're doing really well because they just created basically this sub niche and they have this unique product that most people don't have. Of course, if they haven't patented the idea, it's just a very temporary moat, but you can do more complicated things as well. Niche it down, enter a super competitive market by choosing a niche. This is one of my favorites. It's not necessarily a moat, it's more of a strategy. So you have to combine it with one of the other ideas. But for example, here we have the posture corrector niche. and it's a very competitive niche. I think it's trending right now, and it's very difficult to enter if you have just a generic product. However, if you choose a very specific sub-niche, like we aren't going to launch a posture corrector for adults, it's going to be just for kids, and it's not going to be just for kids, it's going to be just for boys or just for girls. So you niche it down and you enter an otherwise super competitive niche, and you can do very well that way. And several of the products we've sold in October had this kind of approach in the way we launched them. Origin changed the country where you manufacture the product to give it an edge. It's an even stronger moat if the supplier is difficult to access or if it's uncommon, difficult to source from that country. In this case, we have a Japanese knife, but it could be, if you have a leather product, source it from Italy. If you have certain wooden products, it might be a good idea to source them from Bangladesh or India or Taiwan. So if you can identify something specific because of materials, because of a manufacturing process that are usually that are the best qualities in a certain country, and you're willing to take that extra effort, it can be an amazing moat. Can you make it portable? Make something big and bulky suitable for travel. Quantity, again, this is the second one that you shouldn't. It shouldn't be the only improvement you make. Increasing the quantity of what you're offering can help, but if it's the only improvement you make, you'll end up competing on price. This is a very temporary mode. So here I gave two examples. One, instead of selling just one headlamp, you can sell 6. If you look at the price, yes, it's higher, but it's not 6 times higher, so that's very appealing. Up there we have a bird scare tape. Most bird scare tape sellers sell 200 feet roll. This one has 350 feet. The quantity, like in this case, the length of the roll, it makes sense in a lot of unappealing niches. So someone who buys a bird scare tape, they don't buy it to decorate their home or for any, they don't have any sort of hobby or passion around that topic. They simply want to get rid of birds. They're probably going to use it. And the fact that they get more for the same price, it's actually a great improvement for such a boring niche. Remove, unlike adding more, removing can actually be a great moat. Can you simplify? Can you make it more minimalistic, make it look better while preserving function? Here we have a minimalist wallet. Stronger, sturdy, stable, solid. Can you change the material being used to turn a flimsy component into a sturdy one? And here it doesn't have to be the entire product. You can identify the weak parts in a product. So for example, in a laptop table, the legs are made of plastic, and that's not a big issue, but even the parts that connect the legs, the joints, are also made of plastic. So just making your laptop table have metal joints or carbon fiber joints can be enough to really differentiate your product. Tech, with adding some tech, improve the product. Here I like to limit it to sensors. So if the previous letter wasn't taken, I would have used sensors. Can you add biosensors, like the ones that measure pulse, heart rate, motion sensors? And here it's not just presence, like someone is present in the room, but also like speed or acceleration, light sensors, presence of a substance, like a substance in the air, in the soil, in the water, temperature sensors, humidity sensors, any kind of sensors you can think of. Usually they're a great improvement. And here we have, I think, an oil diffuser that also has a sensor for humidity. USB, can you make the power portable? Can you remove the plug and power it via USB? And something that's very common when you take a product and you make it easier to use, or in this case, you make it portable, it will perform worse than the equivalent product that you can plug. But there is always a segment of the market that prefers the convenience of, in this case, portable power, even though the performance, like the power of this blender isn't the same as the one that you plug in. Voice, can you add an Alexa skill to your product? So you can make this fish dance, and you can make it actually play any music. So, I wouldn't expect this kind of product to actually sell well because it has an Alexa skill, but apparently it's a great selling product. And yeah, so anytime you can add an Alexa skill or some voice enabled function to your product, it can be a great improvement. Wi-Fi, going back to that humidity sensor or temperature sensor we had before, we had under C, we had connect, so we connect it to your phone. So something interesting that this product has done is they're selling the actual sensor, so the small thing that you can place anywhere. You can place it in your fridge, in your gun safe, in a room, and it connects to your phone. So if you're in the house, you can read it without having a separate display. But of course, you might want to read it remotely. So you're away from home, so you want to read it through the internet. So they're actually selling, I think they're selling the sensor for $50, and they have a separate product that Wi-Fi router, I think it's like $100. So basic, and they're both selling really well. So if you can go a step further, so not just connect, but actually make it available through Wi-Fi, that's another great improvement. Just 3 more to go. Extra large, so instead of niching it down, niche it up. Are your competitors ignoring customers with large cats who need a bigger sketch pad, a large dog door, a bigger mouse pad, a giant Bible? Those are real products that people search for, and there aren't a lot of sellers offering that. And usually that also goes very well with the visual part. So you can actually have great photos that emphasize what you've done specific to that product. Yell, color, texture, a specific feature, or even the packaging that makes the product stand out from the crowd. And no, it doesn't mean it has to be ugly just because it's different, but it is risky, so not everyone will like it. For example, this is a diaper backpack, and if you search for this keyword, you will notice that most of the backpacks are gray, and that is the safest choice. Probably a lot of people would and are choosing gray, but you also have the Amazon's Choice badge, so probably the one that's converting best, has the highest conversion rate, and it's also ranked #1, is a peach one. And I'm sure that when they decided to launch the peach one, it was a risk, right? So not everyone is going to like that color. But because they were willing to take that risk, they got a huge advantage from that. Zeitgeist, here, if this was a different letter, I would have used something like fad or trend. So is there a trend that you're aware of that you can take advantage of? So you ride that wave of that trend. And again, this should never be the only improvement you make. So with that, I want to try some examples. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes. If you can think, you have the sheet with all those A to Z things. And just write down for 3 minutes some ideas that come to mind. Begin by, for example, if you want to use add, begin by add, ADD, and then write the actual improvement you would make to this picture frame / photo display. If you finish writing, if you want to go to one of the mic stands and just share the ideas that you have, we're going to spend 5 to 10 minutes on this. So, hi.
Hi. So about material, we can do different type of skin that can be removed and switch over like wood or
Make it customizable with a different
metal.
skin, yeah?
Yeah. We can do a tech product like putting a screen and a Wi-Fi connection,
Yeah?
like the computer, and also we can change the picture, asking Alexa,
Oh yeah, so
put the
enable,
pic
yeah,
of my
voice
kid,
enable.
and
Yeah,
yeah, and why not a LED background
yeah,
with the color that.
awesome. Great ideas.
Yeah, so if I would do this, I would probably make it like with the LED maybe, you know, then I would make an option to rotate, you know, so
Oh, yeah.
when you stick it, it rotates, you know, like wherever you want, you know. And the second, I would maybe make, I would call it any size frame.
Okay.
There's an option on the market available like that, you know. So it's like a frame, you know. It goes up and down, you know.
So you can slide it and change.
Yeah,
the size.
you can go up and down, you know, and you kind of stick the photo, you know. It would be unique, you know. So people with the nowadays is a very big trend on houses, like white houses, you know, like so they kind of minimalistic. But this minimalistic look with like a gray metal look, you know, may be very good, you know. So and you can charge like $150 for this, you know. Nobody has it, so.
Yeah, awesome idea. Thank you.
For ad, I put like LED lights around the back so it gives it some pop. Or if you add like UV filtered glass so that way the picture lasts longer and doesn't fade.
Oh yeah.
Also bundling, put a spirit level because you can never find one to hang the darn thing straight. And eco-friendly, just put recycled wood for the frame.
Awesome. Great ideas.
Yeah, I had the same idea about the lighting. Maybe each corner could have like a nice little warm LED focusing on the subject, just to
Right.
give it that warmth.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Awesome.
Okay, same idea with the lights in the back, but then I thought you could also make the edges of it foldable, collapsible, so they kind of more like kind of a where an edge goes into itself, so it can be made into a rectangle.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And then you could have a swiveling corner, right? And then it could all be come into like one long piece like that.
Yeah.
So, and then also a seamless frame. So there's actually no edge. It would be kind of recessed in there, and you just have all picture and it'd be glass. You just have this nice kind of beveled edge. It could be good. The UV glass, and then and then just special shapes. Just a beautiful special shape
Right,
that
so
could go
not
all
just-
over,
yeah.
and various colors. And then you could also have the special shapes illuminated with a bunch of different lights too, so it could feel like special. You know, from just highlight white to blue, green, pink, purple, whatever it is.
Awesome.
There you go.
Great ideas. One more?
This is something I struggle with in my home. I can do a lot of things, but I can't hang pictures, so I'd like a guide
Right.
to help me do it. And then maybe a design feature like it comes with nails that you put in each corner. You can just smash it into the wall
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
it'd just be hung.
Okay. Yeah, awesome ideas. Okay, so how many of you, if you can raise your hand, when you first saw this, like before we went through this A to Z thing, if you were to do some product research and you would see a picture frame like this one, you would think it's a boring product and there's not much you can improve, or you wouldn't be sure where to start from. So if you can raise your hand if you wouldn't be sure where to start from, okay? How many of you, as you heard the ideas being shared, you've heard some ideas you wouldn't have thought of on your own? Okay, great. And have you noticed how there are some common patterns emerging, like there were some common ideas? So the way we do it with our VAs is exactly what we've done here. So we each write down something, and only after that we start sharing, because when you think about this, you go through this sheet by yourself and you think about your own ideas, you're not influenced by the other ones. And then when you all share and then you start the brainstorm, you get the value from the fact that you have all these different ideas, and you avoid that tendency to converge. Like if we all started sharing without writing down first, we would all be influenced by the previous ideas. So hopefully you find this useful. This is what we've been doing, like I said, for the past 4 months. And I think it's fun, it's useful because it makes it very clear. You know, you can spend 1 hour with your team and you're going to have a lot of improvements you could make. I'm not going to go like I had 20 examples prepared here. That's unrealistic. We're really, we don't have a lot of time, so I won't do that now. But I would encourage you when you go back home, whether you have a partner, even if you do this by yourself, but if you have a team, a partner, do this exercise with them, even if you're not about to source a product. Just go through this exercise and hopefully it will help you not only generate ideas for these specific products, but understand the process and just give you a sense of how easy it is to come up with these innovations and improvements, and it doesn't have to be something super complicated, and you don't have to have a lot of knowledge about the niche. Just using your own, common sense can be enough. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this here. So yeah, if you have any questions about building moats, we can take 2 minutes for that, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic.
So Tryon, out of all of these, which are the ones that are easy to get a design patent for or like functional patent? And I know it takes some time for the functional, right?
Yeah, so I don't have the sheet in front of me, so I'm not going to go through each of them. But yeah, like I think your point is, not all of these are suitable for patents, right? So some of them are just improvements that you would make and they wouldn't be standalone. So some would be suitable for design patents, and usually the ones that are suitable for a functional patent, they're automatically suitable for a design one as well. From my memory, I think there's about 8 in there, and I can talk to you about this during the break, but there are about 8 that are suitable for functional design. Think about 20 or 21 for a design patent, and there's just about 5 that are just improvements that you could understand alone. But I will add this information on the sheet. So under the recording of this video, I will modify the sheet that you have right now to also give some explanation about patenting.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Hi.
Hello. Oh, sounds really loud. In your RRR strategy, you talk about taking boring, overlooked consumable products, which are part of subscribe and save. How would you put a moat around any of those products?
We're going to cover that tomorrow when we get to the RRR strategy. As you'll see, like most of that is going to be covered by Ben. I have some hacks related to RRR products because like most of his Amazon business is RRR products, so he'll be more suitable to answer your question. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind at the Q&A after the RRR session tomorrow, if you can ask this question again, because it will make more sense after we covered that.
Perfect.
Thank
Will
you.
do. Thank you.
I have 2 questions. Number one is when you say design patent, which is the easier one to get, I assume, it does take some time for that to get approved.
Yeah.
So if someone does knock you off on Amazon, can you file a report with, even though it's in pending stage, and then they'll get booted off? How does that work?
I'm not sure if you're not in Amazon Launchpad. I'm sorry that I'm going to this again, but if you're in one of the special programs and you have a pending patent, whether it's design, functional, yeah, they're going to take down all the competitors who abuse it. In theory, I think normal support should do that as well, but we all know how it's like to deal with them. So yeah, at least in Amazon Launchpad, they're taking down even like a patent that we've applied for 2 weeks ago. It's pending. As long as we have the number and the description, they will take it down.
And you're in Launchpad for all your products?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost like 95%, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And then my second question is, can you talk to us about, for those who've never done mold before, can you talk to us about the step-by-step process of how to deal with like a Chinese manufacturer? Like, what do you need? Like a CAD drawing? Like, how
Sure.
does that process work?
So, as I mentioned, I've addressed this in more detail in the previous master classes. I've decided not to focus on the technical aspects. You will find in the members area, I will find a video that goes through the technical aspect of that.
Okay, so we have access to those resources?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Thank you.
Just question on the bamboo. Did you get a design or a utility patent for that, your first one?
It was a design patent.
Okay.
And
Because that seemed not pretty obvious for the utility, right?
in theory, it modifies the function.
Yeah.
So I'm almost sure that we could have applied for a functional one. It's just cheaper and faster with a design one. Also, something I should mention, when we actually made the exit, the patent was still pending,
Okay.
and it wasn't an issue for the buyer. But yeah, in that case, I still think, like, the only issue with functional patents is that you have to document them really well. So you need to hire professionals that explain that function improvement there's all these legal terms. But yeah, it would be suitable for a
Do you like going through the process of doing the patent, kind of just getting your placeholder, like doing the, just forgot the wording, but basically you can hold your place for a year and kind of see if it's viable, then you go through the full process? Do you do
so
that for
I
the
think you're
utilities?
referring to the fact that you have 1 year.
Yeah, something
to
with the
actually apply.
utilities. I don't know why I just blanked. You can file, so you can have the patent pending. Basically, you can hold your place for a year, then you can file the actual patent for utilities.
Yeah,
Do you do
yeah.
that
So
often, or?
yeah, and that's what, like, if you talk to a patent attorney, that's what I think
Just-
most of them will advise.
Make sure you're not wasting your money, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
At what point do you consider the patent? Do you test the product first and then decide to file the patent if it's successful?
That's a great question. So if you remember from the body brush, I showed you like 4 pictures in the beginning, how it evolved. My personal preference is to make these incremental improvements. So if for example, I'm doing this brainstorming and I get like 5 ideas of things we could do improve, I choose only one to do in the very beginning. Usually it will be the one that I can apply for a patent right away, so I can, I don't have to wait years until I can sell the business. But I like to do this incremental improvement. So maybe not with each reorder, but every second reorder, I add one more thing. It's also easier, like it doesn't take that much time to, you have to talk to the supplier, discuss all the improvements, arrange everything. Like if you try to do them all at once, you might get stuck. It takes a year to source the product. Plus, it keeps your competitors on their toes. So they might see, I don't know, that we added that adjustable strap. Like if I kept the product, I would keep making improvements. So maybe they copied that, but I'm always thinking about the next improvement I can make. Personally, I think that's better than doing them all at once.
And what resources do you have to streamline the patent process? Do you have a patent lawyer? Do you have a quicker way to keep them moving?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What do you have to streamline the patent application process? Do you have a patent lawyer that you hire to work on it?
And I'm sharing, I think there's 5 different ones that we've tested. I'm highlighting, so you'll find it in the members area, the contact details. There's one that I prefer the most, but also 4 others that we've used and we haven't had any issues.
Yeah, I have just a quick question. Like, what is the price starts from? Like what you expect when you're trying to build new product? How much costs the patent process? Like it starts, let's say, from 2,000, 3,000. Like, what's the entry price?
Yeah.
And what's the ways to minimize this cost? As well.
Okay, so the cost is between $3,000 and $5,000 for a design patent, and here I'm including legal fees, state fees. Usually you will need to hire an engineer to do some CAD files, or you hire a chemist to design a custom formulation. So yeah, it's between $3,000 and $5,000 for a design patent. For a functional one, it can go much higher, like way over $30,000. So that's why I prefer the design patent first. And I don't know of a way to make that lower than $3,000 to $5,000. And I also don't think you should. Like that investment of $3,000 to $5,000 adds so much more to the multiple and the business value that I really don't think you should try to cut that cost. Sure.
Do you ever research whether or not a product is patented before you start making improvements?
Okay, so this is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. My personal preference is to not do that, and it's just based on, I would say, the negative experiences we've had. So we used to consult with the same attorney that does our patent applications, we would, we would check with them, okay, is there an existing patent? Should we even enter this market? So what happened is that there were 2 occasions, and this is not the same attorney that I'm going to recommend to you, it's one of the first one we used, but he said, go ahead, and it was actually not okay to go ahead. And then there were a couple of other instances where he said, we shouldn't proceed. I felt, we should just go ahead. And at least so far, we haven't had any issues. So just my personal preference, I just do a based on my common sense, I will enter an issue or not, whether I perceive, if there's an obvious patent, I won't enter, but I'm not using professional services to dictate the decision, and it's just my personal preference.
Are you aware of whether or not it's okay to add something to improve a product and therefore you're not infringing on somebody's patent, or is it only that you can remove something? I heard something about that, but I'm not really clear on it.
So again, this is not legal advice. So my understanding is that when you apply, for example, for a functional patent, you're not applying for the entire product. It's just that specific function, that specific element that you're adding or removing or improving. So that being said, if your product includes a component that is infringing on someone's patent, that's a separate issue, right? So your patent is just covering what you're doing, and then you might still have a problem with your product if it's infringing on someone else's. Hopefully that makes sense.
Hi. I was wondering if for a newer business that may be lower budget, if you have recommendations on which of the moat building strategies you might want to focus on first, because I imagine that creating a new model and mold for a product could be pretty expensive on top of the patent costs.
So I would start by adding, and it's literally the smallest improvement, the smallest feature, the smallest component that you can change. So I'll give you an example. We're selling a laptop table, and it has an edge that is curved. And for some other reasons that I won't explain here, we had to change that so the edge is not curved anymore, and we're simply adding a plastic component to avoid the laptop from sliding down. And that alone would be something that would be enough, I think even for a functional patent. So I guess the shortcut would be, can you think of a small plastic thing, metal thing, wood thing, but an actual component that you can add to the product? That should be the cheapest one. Still, I would encourage you to go through the whole process because this is so product specific, right? So when you do the brainstorming with your team, you might discover 3 different things that when combined are eligible for a patent. They're not that expensive to implement. Plus, if you combine this with building your knowledge about the manufacturing processes, I think, at least for me, that's like the key. The moment you understand the manufacturing process behind your product, you can identify tweaks that you can make in a material or in the manufacturing process that actually don't cost anything. It might make even the product even cheaper, and yeah, that's where I would start.
Okay, and then a follow-up, do you test the improvements that you're making to the product before going to market with that bigger commitment?
I don't, but I think it's part of what I mentioned earlier with making incremental improvements. So it sometimes happens that we make an improvement from one order to another, and then at the next one we realize, it created some unforeseen problem, or, it's not well received by the new customer, so we'll just remove it and add another improvement. I think it's faster, and statistically, if you launch a lot of products, it's more efficient this way to do these incremental improvements.
Thank you.
I have an extreme doubt of using anything electrical because I've heard some nightmare stories of suppliers when you go into electrics or doing anything add-on that involves electrics.
Okay, so I'm going to give a more general answer here. if I'm going to tell you don't source electric products, electronic products, because there are all these difficulties that you're mentioning or potential problems, 95% of the sellers are actually not doing that, but it creates an opportunity for the other 5% who either find a way to solve the problem, they identify a great connection in a quality inspection company, in a great supplier, in a great freight forwarder, and they make a lot of money because everyone else is avoiding that niche. That would also apply, for example, for clothing. Personally, I don't like to source clothing products because of size issues, and I think a lot of sellers think about it that way, but it creates an opportunity for sellers who are willing to deal with that and the return rates to make a lot of money. So I'm not going to say don't go into electrics. I think you're right about the potential problems. But my recommendation would be try to think of ways, connections that you can make, suppliers you can identify and so on, to solve the problem rather than completely avoid any kind of niche.
This is about perhaps a useful moat for in the patent context. Comes under hacks maybe, but I don't think, my opinion, having the intention of getting a full-blown patent is a waste of time. All you really need to do is just to file a provisional patent. That gives you sort of a legitimate way to say patent pending. Okay, it costs $200.
Sure.
You get 12 months, so it's temporary. But here's a thought beyond that. Don't even do that. Just say patent application pending.
Okay.
Who's going to know the difference, patent pending versus patent application pending?
Okay.
It's free.
I see where, yeah. Great idea.
It's a hack and a shortcut.
Yeah, I like it.
Back to your comment about incrementally adding different feature, different functions, so to speak. And you mentioned you do this in your reorder. I just want to confirm, you're not creating a new Amazon ASIN for that.
No, it's the same one. Like in theory, I think we're breaking the terms of service by doing that. Amazon doesn't like it, but as long as it's not a terrible improvement that, and as long as you change the images, like there might be one customer who notices, like he's bought from you before and he notices that the new product is altered and they don't like it. You will have to deal, like there's 1 in 1,000 situations like that.
So in the actual marketing copy, you're not saying new and improved. You're not drawing attention to that, or are you?
I am.
You are drawing attention to that.
Like whenever. So actually, I don't think we have a lot of products where we are saying new and improved in the title, but just from a theoretical point of view, I wouldn't be against that. So I think we use it in the bullet points. I don't make it a point, but I don't think it's a bad thing to say that it's new and improved.
One last question on the patents. You were discussing a little bit about, doing a clearance search with the attorneys versus doing your own research.
Yep.
I just want to clarify, at the beginning, you're doing your own patent research. You're not contacting attorneys to have them do a clearance search, so to speak. Is that correct?
So what I'm actually doing, this is a bit more costly because you're still using their services and paying for that. I'm still letting them do the research, but if they say no or yes, I'm not going to follow their advice. I'm just going to look at the research they've done and they point out, here's a potential patent that you're infringing on, and I decide whether, is it really something that I should worry about or not. And if they say go ahead, I'm still going to look on Amazon at competitors and see if they mention patent pending and if I can find their patent. So I still recommend that you pay an attorney for that. Just I don't follow their advice. Just use their research.
Thanks.
After you do your research and say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead with the product and the patent, do you first test the product and then apply for a patent, or just go ahead and apply for a patent?
So in order to apply for the patent, you actually need to have professional drawings done, and you need the attorney to be able to describe the product. It helps if the product is actually finished, or at least, even if it's not mass production, but a final sample that is really accurate. So once I have that accurate sample, that's when I go to the next step, which is to hire a professional designer to create the drawings and proceed with the process.
So that's before you launch it, let's say.
Yeah. So like the timing is, I get the final sample. At that time, I proceed with hiring the designer. They begin mass production, and usually it coincides that when they finish mass production and they ship out the product, that's when the lawyer can apply for the patent. So in terms of timing, that's what usually happens.
Thank you.
Sure.
So for these small improvements, how do you deal with the Amazon stock? So you're going to change your pictures, right? But how do you deplete the old stock? How do you deal with that?
So it's there's an SOP in the members area. I'm taking advantage of the fact that even though you have the same ASIN, you can have different manufacturer SKUs. So that's one way of doing it. It's not perfect, but you'll see the SOP for that. And the second way of dealing with it is you're going to be out of stock for 2 days, 3 days, 5 days by doing this, but you first ship like the improved product to an intermediary warehouse, and you just time it when the old inventory depletes. That's when you send a new one. And it adds a bit of cost and potentially running out of inventory. Third option, you don't time it perfectly, and you will have commingled inventory. You'll have, let's say, 20 units of the old one, 1,000 of the new one, and there will be 10 to 20 customers who maybe see the new pictures and get the old product. And if they really are concerned about that, you send them a replacement and a refund. Something interesting about this last one and why I prefer it, whenever you can create a small problem intentionally for the customers and then you immediately solve it, it actually, like those 20 customers can leave the best reviews just because you had the opportunity to provide great customer service. So I wouldn't recommend intentionally causing problems, but whenever we've had like these small issues and we've actually provided great support, it turned that it was actually very beneficial.
Thank you.
Hi. So
Hi.
I'm wondering if the patent, if it's applicable to consumer products, consumable products as well. So if I have a product that I'm formulating,
right,
do I need to get the patent first, or go ahead and start making it and trying it out and sampling it?
So I don't source those kind of products, so I don't want to give you the wrong answer just because I don't have any experience with that. I'm pretty sure that you can get a patent for custom formulation, but I can't reply to your question of how that's timed just because I don't have any experience with that. But I'm sure that there are some alumni in here that have dealt with that, so maybe if any of you have an answer for her, maybe talk to her during the break.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.